Regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting for May 15, 2025. To order, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
They were published yesterday.
Yep, thank you. Ms. Shank, is there anything from the county attorney's office?
No changes.
Thank you. Can we have approval of April 10th, 2025 minutes? Or is there any discussion? Here we go. So moved by Ms. Gay and seconded by Mr. Elslinger. Please cast your votes. No, ma'am.
It's working on this side. What are y'all seeing?
Nothing.
Nothing. Close your clients completely and then reopen.
Yeah. Can we just go ahead and take a verbal vote? Please raise your hand for approval. Motion passes 6-0. Let's move on to citizen comments. This is for consideration of future agenda items that are not on today's agenda. Each person was limited to 3 minutes. Please step forward. Let's close citizen comments and move on to item number 1. Please read that in the record.
Item number 1, this is the county-initiated Land Development Code text amendment for impact fees. It is legislative. It's an ordinance of Manatee County providing a statement of purpose and intent, providing findings, including a finding that extraordinary circumstances exist necessitating an increase in impact fee rates in excess of the phase-in limitations provided in Section 163.31801 of Florida statutes. It's amending the Manatee County Land Development Code, ordinance number 24-43, as amended the code, and amending Chapter 2 definitions, amending and reinstating Chapter 11 relating to impact fees.
We don't have the correct item on our computer screen. documents.
the agenda, I don't see any of the information.
He's got the agenda, everybody else has the home screen. You can proceed with the presentation if you want.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Good morning, I'm Rachel Layton. I am the county's impact fee administrator, and I reside in Manatee County. For this item, there's no need for us to be sworn. This is a legislative item. I wanted to just give a brief update from where we've been the last few weeks. Last week, we hosted 2 public outreach meetings in regards to the extraordinary circumstances on impact fees. I'll let our consultant give a briefing on that, and that is part of your presentation for today. But our consultant, Negan Camp with Banesh, is going to be our expert testimony today. So I'm going to turn it over to Negan, but as you all have questions, I want to be able to help assist with those. Thank you.
Good morning, Megan Camp with Benish. So we'll first go through the technical study, and then the presentation gets into the extraordinary circumstances. In terms of the technical study, the methodology is what we call a consumption-based methodology, which charges New Growth for the value of the infrastructure that it's consuming. And the way the fees are calculated, they ensure that the new development is not charged for any existing deficiencies. They only charge for new capacity. The basic impact fee formula starts with estimating the cost to add capacity in each service area, so that's the value of the capital assets. From that, we subtract any non-impact fee funding that is contributed by future development. So to the extent that county uses taxes and other revenue sources, a portion will come from future development, and that's subtracted. That net cost gets multiplied by demand, which is measured in terms of travel for transportation and population for the other fees. So in each service area, again, we start with the inventory, look at the level of service, estimate the cost of providing that capacity, address the alternative funding sources also contributed, and then calculate net impact fee and the calculated fee. Before I get into the details, we wanted to show you a summary of the fees, where they are heading. So there are 3 slides. This first one looks at the residential land uses, and you can see that total fee with the educational facility fees, what they are compared to what the current fees are. And this study does not address the educational facilities impact fee, but so that's at this current adopted rate. So you can kind of see that for residential, single family, it would range from about $13,000 to $32,000, depending on the size, and for multifamily, it's from about $10,000 to $24,000. And also the other, item to note here, about half of this is from transportation, and between transportation, schools, and parks, the 3 of them make up about almost 90% of this fee. So those are the bigger, more costly infrastructure types. This slide shows the same type of information for congregate care, lodging, nursing home. And finally, this slide shows it for all the other non-residential land uses. Also, one thing I'd like to mention, some of these land uses are new to the schedule. For example, in the past, the county did not have gas stations separated. They were using retail rate as a proxy. So part of these increases is because now we are reflecting their true impact. In the past, they were just estimated. Study is addressing these 5 service areas. So if we start with public safety, the capital inventory includes 6 county-owned EMS stations and some additional buildings of altogether about almost 200,000 square feet and 47 acres. We also include vehicles and equipment. Building costs are estimated based on any recent constructions or bids for upcoming construction by the county, and that's supplemented by insurance values of current building and data from other jurisdictions. And in the case of land values, again, we reviewed any recent purchases, if they have any appraisals, estimates for upcoming purchases, and then also review vacant land sales throughout the county of similar size parcels. So in each areas, that analysis was completed. In the case of public safety, the buildings were estimated at $500 per square foot, and the land at $215,000 per acre. For impact fee purposes, level of service is measured in terms of population per station. Obviously, for operations, they review the response time. So in terms of populations per station, each owned station is handling about 75,000 people. County has other stations that are leased. We cannot include lease stations in the impact fee calculations, but just for informational purposes, there are actually altogether 18 stations, each handling about 25,000 people. So the total asset value with building value, land value, vehicles, and equipment is about $136 million. That divided by the population gives us a value of almost $300 per person. So that represents the investment made by the community up to this point into public safety infrastructure. So that's sort of our starting point to charge a new development. Credit component reviews other funding sources that are being contributed. So there are contributions from primarily the sales tax and general fund, and that amounts to about $2.5 million per year when we review how capital facilities were funded past 5 years and what's programmed for next 5 years. So the net cost is the total cost minus that credit. It ends up being about $202 to $207 per person. That figure multiplied by residents per unit gives us the final calculated rate. So these are some example land uses. You can see the single family would be about $345, up about 15% from 300 and so on. This slide provides a comparison to other jurisdictions. In these comparison slides, we included the study date so you can see how old their studies are, and then adoption percentage in case, which is a policy decision if they adopted at a reduced percentage or 100%. So here is a 3,000 square foot home. The fees by these jurisdictions is ranging anywhere from $55 to about $225. Law enforcement, there are about 6 facilities with 336,000 total square feet, about 40 acres of land. Again, vehicles and equipment. The building value is estimated at $425 per square foot, and land is about $200,000 per acre. Level of service is measured in terms of officers per 1,000 population, which is about 1.8. So the total asset value is about $223 million, and divided by the population gives us a value of $646 per person, again representing the investment up to this point. County allocated funds from sales tax and general fund for capacity addition projects that generates a credit. There's also a debt service related to a capacity project. So the total credit ends up being about $82 to $86. And once that is subtracted, net cost is about $560 to $564 per person. Those are multiplied by residents per unit, again gives us the fee. So here the fee for a 2,000 square foot home is about $986. The current fee is about $600, so that's a 64% increase. And here's a comparison to some other jurisdictions, and their single family rate ranges from about $280 to about $587. Library facilities includes 7 libraries and about 167,000 square feet, 17 acres of land, and the building value is estimated about at $500 per square foot, and the land value is about $200,000 per acre. So level of service is measured in terms of square footage for buildings per population or the materials per population. Total capital asset value is about $98 million. That divided by population gives us a value of about $200 per resident, again, representing the investment up to this point. There are funding allocated to libraries from the sales tax. There's a millage and general fund, so they all generate about $628,000 per year. Also, there's outstanding debt service associated with capacity projects. So the net cost ends up being about $167. Library impact fees are charged only to residential land uses, so that cost multiplied by residents per unit gives you the calculated fees, which range about $240 to about $400, almost $20 for single family, $194 to about $240 for multifamily. Again, this provides you a comparison to other jurisdictions, and this group of counties, the fees range anywhere from $150 to about $680 for a 2,000 square foot home. Parks and Recreation, there's about 3,600 acres of parkland, and the level of service achieved is about 7.29 acres per 1,000 population. In addition to land value, there are also costs associated with recreational facilities. So those added together is about $967 million. That divided by population gives us a value of almost $2,000 per resident. Again, that's your capital investment up to this point. There are allocations from general fund, Parks and Recreation Fund, sales tax, and some other revenue sources toward capacity projects. So that generates a credit of about $5 million per year. And there's also outstanding debt service associated with parks capacity projects. So when that credit is subtracted, net cost ends up being about $1,755 per person. And just like libraries, parks impact fees are also only charged to residential land uses. So the fees would range, for single family would range anywhere from $2,500 to $4,400, and for multifamily about $2,000 to $2,500. And this chart provides a comparison to other jurisdictions. And again, for a single family, this group is ranging from about $800 to about $3,600. Transportation is calculated a little differently, so I kind of want to quickly go over the formula. We start by estimating the cost of 1 lane mile, so it's estimated at $8.5 million. So that just says if we are building 1 mile of roadway with 2 lanes, that's about $17 million. That lane mile carries a capacity of about 13,000. That cost divided by the capacity gives us a value of $640. That just says every time we add a person for them to travel a mile, it's costing the transportation infrastructure about $640, just sort of a unit cost. Average home generates 34 person miles daily, so those two multiply gives us a total cost of $22,000 per home. And then we subtract the credit, and the net fee ends up being about $19,800. That's a 2,000 square foot home. So demand component for transportation is measured based on 3 key variables. Is the number of trips daily, how many trips each land use takes, how long those trips are, and how many of them are new trips. So if somebody is going from home to office, they stop at a gas station, that gas station doesn't get charged for that trip because that was already on the way. On the cost side, we review any local projects. So there were several recent and planned projects, and they average about $7.2 million per lane mile. Just to provide a little conservative estimate, we excluded anything above 10 million and then ended up using about $6 million per lane mile in the calculations. This chart is showing you a change on cost trends over time, going back to 2000. And you can kind of see that 04, 05, 06, the costs were increasing. That was the economic boom. Then we hit the Great Recession, costs started to decrease. Then they were increasing, and the level of increase heightened significantly after the pandemic. So that's kind of the reason why these fees are ending up higher. So with all the other components, in addition to construction, design, right-of-way, construction and engineering inspection, total cost per lane mile ends up being about $8.5 million. There are revenue sources from all sources, county, state being primarily the contributors, are considered as part of the credit component. So there's about $50 million being contributed annually from other revenue sources, a large portion coming from the state as well as the county revenues. One item we'd like to highlight is that although transportation has a dedicated revenue source in terms of fuel taxes, it is a very inefficient revenue source. It's, as you know, is on a per gallon basis, and the state pennies are indexed, but the local pennies are not allowed to be indexed. So when we look at it over time, a penny in mid-90s, in terms of local pennies, a penny in mid-90s is worth less than half of its value now between fuel efficiency and inability to index. So we have a situation where the costs are increasing, but the dedicated revenue source is losing ground, and that's why many jurisdictions are having to supplement with other revenue sources. So overall, the fee ends up being about almost $20,000 for a 2,000 square foot home, and currently it's at $4,500, and then you can see the other land uses also experiencing significant increases. And this chart providing some examples. I think we may have one more. So the very first column in red font, numbers column, is the calculated rate. And then the next four are your current rates, depending on the district. And then we start with the other jurisdictions. So the other jurisdictions in this chart, their fees are ranging anywhere from $2,000 to about $13,000. And then in this group, it's ranging anywhere from $3,000 to about $16,000 almost. So this is the chart that you've seen before, and we'll come back to it if you'd like to look at it, just summarizing all the changes. And then in terms of the extraordinary circumstances, again, in 2021, we had a House bill that placed limits on how much the fees can be increased. And if they increase, and then that increase has to be phased. So they cannot be increased more than 50%, and that 50% has to be phased over 4 installments, which is interpreted as 4 years. There's an exception clause that says if there's a study showing extraordinary circumstances, and there are 2 public workshops dedicated to discuss these circumstances, and the increase is approved by 2/3 of the governing body, then it can be more than 50%, and it doesn't have to be phased according to the statute. It can be different phasing or no phasing. They have more flexibility. We just had the Senate Bill 1080 passed. It affects this item now, basically, which is right now effective October 1st. A jurisdiction cannot claim extraordinary circumstances unless they updated their fee within the past 5 years, and the approval requires unanimous vote instead of 2/3. Right now, the term extraordinary circumstances is not defined in the statute, so the jurisdictions that use this clause showed high growth levels, outdated fees or artificially low fees, higher cost levels, and also the list of needs. So when we look at Manatee County compared to other Florida counties, you rank 15th out of 67 in population, 9th in projected growth rate, 12th in projected absolute growth, and 8th in residential permitting. So basically, this is to say you're a large county growing very rapidly. You're in the top 20% of all Florida counties. In addition, the population levels exceeded what was forecasted during the last impact fee study, the 2015 study. So at least by 10 to 25% higher than what was at the time being estimated and expected. This is showing the residential permitting trends, and you can kind of see it's almost following the cost trends. You had the 04, 05, 06 up, then you had the recession, then they started going up, and then since the pandemic, it really, sped up, and it reached its highest level since 1990s. So again, residential permitting over the last 5 years ended up averaging about 7,400 permits. At the time of the 2015 study, it was averaging 2,400. Even when we did the 23 update, it was 6,100, 20% lower than what it is now. In addition, we've seen quite a bit cost increases since 2015, especially since the pandemic. The indices ranging anywhere, I mean, some of these are national, but they are ranging anywhere from 50% to 170%. You just saw that graph, but basically, again, just making the point that that level of increase became much more significant after the pandemic. In 2015 study, the cost for a lane mile was estimated at $3.3 million. Now, even with a conservative approach, it's at $8.5 million. That's 2.5 times the increase. So this chart is kind of showing you, in the red box, we have the current adopted fees using the Northeast District and the calculated fees. And again, the increase is definitely more than 50%. It's significant. When we look at the calculated fees in 23 study, then increase is more moderated. It's more like 55 to 60%. But again, in 23, they were not adopted. They were adopted with that 50% limit. So the full fees were not implemented. And then if we were to, again, use a cap of 50%, that's the sort of a gray box, we would be charging anywhere from 25 to 60% lower than the full cost. And then in terms of project needs, the transportation demand models that are used to develop long-range transportation plans are estimating by 2045 about 20% of the lane miles, county lane miles, being over capacity. That is after all the projects in the long-range plan's cost-feasible plan are built. So even after they are built, there'll be about 164 miles over capacity. So the cost to cure those miles is about $1.4 billion at today's costs. Right now, county has $674 million worth of projects identified. So this slide and next slide sort of lists those projects. In terms of law enforcement, there's needs amounting to about $67 million. And some of these projects I'm showing you here is split between law enforcement and public safety, so we only include half its value for law under that 67, and the other half here in public safety. So public safety has about $46 million worth of needs. Libraries at about $34 million. Parks and natural resources about $43 million. When we look at the revenues, over the last 5 years, county averaged about $63 million from these 5 service areas per year on average, and that has a potential to increase to $120 to $153 million if the fees were adopted as full. Next steps, today I'm here and we are here to answer any questions, get your input, and then next week is the first reading of the board. June 5th is the second reading, and then September 19 would be when the fees can be effected. Any increases has to wait 90 days, a minimum of 9 days before being effective. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Please go ahead.
Just have a quick question. In the parks, in that study, I noticed that the parish park was not included in that study. There was supposed to be a phase 2 that was removed from the CIP. Was there a reason why that was not included in the study?
If it was in the inventory, we would have included in the study, so I'm not I'm not sure. You're saying our inventory didn't include in the study inventory? or
In the study, yes.
Oh,
I
you
noticed
mean
that
the
Parish
project
Park-
needs?
Correct.
Oh, okay, that, do you guys know?
We reached out to each of the department directors for those 5 subjects and received the information back from them, and I'm sorry, I don't have them in the audience today. So I don't have an answer on why that might not have been included.
And just to clarify, these are example projects, not necessarily entire list.
Thank you for your presentation and your work on this. I am born and raised here, so I understand the extraordinary circumstances of growth that we've been having, but I'm also a business owner. I'm a third-generation entrepreneur. I can't help but look at this from the impacts that this is going to have on development that isn't just single-family, multifamily residential units. And I think a lot of this presentation and what we're hearing is very kind of losing the forest for the tree, because we're looking at this primarily through, okay, well, this is how it's going to impact our single family, our multifamilies, and things like that. So I have a few questions. I mean, we've, kind of behind, with all of this, we're saying our county is very far behind, we need to play catch up and things like that. So what metrics are we going to be using to determine that these will be sufficient to meet the long-term needs and not just our immediate shortfalls?
So the impact fees themselves cannot charge what is not achieved. So it basically looks at the current conditions, your current achieved level of service in terms of capital facilities, and that's the best it can charge for. So if you are playing catch-up, meaning you are trying to improve the level of service, that has to be done with taxes. Impact fees will take the burden off the taxes by taking care of generating enough to maintain the current level of service. So at least it takes care of that. But to improve anything, you would have to use taxes. Now, once it's improved, and next update, then we can ask the new development to pay at that rate too. But right now, all it does is it just maintains the conditions you have.
Okay. So would we consider this to be a temporary fix or part of a sustainable long-term funding strategy?
That is, in my mind, is a more of a policy decision. If maintained, impact fees help a great deal of with funding and taking care of the capacity needs by just, again, maintaining the level of service and freeing up the other tax dollars for either improving or for maintenance, repairs, that kind of thing. But again, every jurisdiction is different in terms of, what their priorities are and all that, so.
Okay. What would the plan be? I mean, what happens, we make this plan, it seems great, it seems like we would get a lot of funding for these additional needs that benefit the community, but what happens if growth slows, development patterns shift?
Yeah,
Then-
reducing impact fees is the easiest thing. You do it with one meeting. Increasing it takes much more effort. But, I mean, if you see, during the Great Recession, many jurisdictions suspended their fees. And, it's really a very easy decision to reduce it.
Okay. And then have we had any thought into, or maybe there's more that you can share that isn't included in this presentation on, this is focused a lot on how this will fund public needs for the residents of the county, but how will these impact fees affect small businesses critical to our local economy? We're growing, right? We're getting a lot, in my opinion, a lot younger of a generation than we've kind of had historically in the county. With that comes the need for childcare. We have an aging population. With that comes the need for ALFs and similar things. So if those are being created by, private for-profit entities, how will these affect those entering our economy? Will it make us less attractive for people to come in and create those, and then it's creating an additional undue burden then on the residents because they're not able to put their kids in childcare? They can't, take their aging parents to someone.
Rachel Layton for the record. I'm going to take this one again. So a lot of the questions that you have today, Commissioner, are policy questions, and the Planning Commission is really here for consistency and compliance with the comprehensive plan and land development code. So I really appreciate your questions, and I'm going to try to answer them the best I can with Negan. But I wanted to make sure that we're setting the intent is, Planning Commission is not the policymakers, it is the recommending body to the next folks. But your questions are really very, very good, Commissioner Gay. So with that, one of the things that we've been looking at is how do we find incentives for those particular uses that are the ones that are targeted industries, where Manatee County is looking specifically to grow with the Economic Development Council. So there will be more meetings with our county CFO, Sheila McLean, with Sharon Hillstrom, so that we can look at what are our other funding strategies to help offset those costs so that we're not prohibiting those uses from coming to Manatee County.
Okay, great. And then I think one of my kind of follow-ups is, what is the, in your expert opinions, what is the potential adverse effects with this, with single-family, multifamily? I mean, I would think if I'm a private business owner, I'm a developer, I'm having these increased fees, then I'm going to be coming and asking for increased density.
The impact fees are really to pay for the impact that these are creating on the on the infrastructure system. They're not designed to fix current deficiencies or
Right.
prevent, our infrastructure from needing regular maintenance. There's a lot of things that impact fees cannot do. So maintenance, repair, replacement, those things are not done by impact fees. So
Yeah.
it's all for the new facilities, the new sheriff's offices.
Right. No, I
the-
apologize. Maybe I need to clarify. I'm thinking if I'm a developer who wants to build in Manatee County and I'm wanting my business to be profitable, and now this is having significant effects on my level of profitability, because, I mean, at the end of the day, any business is in business to be profitable.
Right.
That's going to cause me to then come to the county and say, rezone this, increase my density here to better control my costs to maintain a certain level of profitability. So I want to make sure I understand we're not, the governing body and things, but I think these are questions that we need to understand what all of the possible impacts could be so that we can have a whole picture of
Right.
recommending
And
this or not.
while I can't speak to the developers, again, that for the non-residential uses, we'll work with those other agencies to find a way to, if this is approved, to offset some of those costs for them. And with the housing market, I think that's, may have been the original drive because we've seen so many tens of thousands of homes be built in the last 10 years. And I was a part of those processes on the other side. So I know that those are all there, and we need the infrastructure. And that's really the intent of impact fees. I'm going to let Negan come back up to help me answer.
I don't know the impact necessarily on rezoning, but like this question of adverse effects usually comes up. And when we look at the research, there's different ways that cost gets split. So if it's a more recessionary time period, it could be that land value is now not as much, they pay less, or some of the amenities in the house is reduced to make up for that cost. Some of it is passed down, some of it may be taken care of by the developer's profit margin. Ultimately, the market price determines what will be paid. As long as there's somebody to pay for that price, the house will sell at that price, even if you stop all the impact fees. On the flip side, if impact fees allow for the community to keep building the infrastructure and maintain the level of service, help maintain the level of service, that also creates a more attractive destination for the development community as well. And that helps them in that way also. If there's like no parks, no amenities, no schools, that's harder to sell their products. So it's a question always asked, and we never have 100% perfect answer or analysis that documents it, but those are the different thoughts on that.
Okay, and then Ms. Layton, do we have an idea of or a timeline on where our comprehensive plan stands in this process?
Yes. I'm expecting the draft from Kimley Horn tomorrow. And then once we've been able to make sure the document can be posted to the website, we will be doing that hopefully before Memorial Day.
Okay, and then a follow-up to that, assuming obviously we can't, we don't know this yet, but assuming from the back end of the work you guys have been doing, this increase in impact fees fits into that comprehensive plan of growth and everything there.
Yes. And again, on the comprehensive plan, because we've also been watching the state legislature, we have to be very mindful that we can't propose anything that is burdensome. So the impact fees comes to you as one item that is, impact fees aren't as specifically addressed in the comprehensive plan as they are in the land development code. So what you have in front of you is changes to the land development code that are consistent with the comprehensive plan and our need for growing our infrastructure and with state statutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are we looking at enacting this at 100% of the costs of the impact fees, or is it?
That is what the request was from the board back at the beginning of the
Okay.
year, was to propose these at 100%. What happens during the next two meetings will determine what final numbers are out of the hearing, because I know that they watch and they listen to what you're saying.
Sure. What are our neighboring counties doing with impact fees? Are they
I'm gonna
readjusting theirs, or?
bring the
Yes, ma'am.
Megan camp back up.
There are quite a bit of updates going on, like Hillsborough County just started their transportation impact fee update. Collier County is updating all their fees. Hillsborough is also updating schools. And then I'm trying to think. Sarasota, I'm not sure. I think they updated recently. So Orange County should be coming, like they started their school impact fee. And we are seeing even the counties who never had impact fees starting to get into it just because they are feeling the pressure now.
Ms. Camp, excuse me, do you have that chart that you could show us that shows the different counties updating? What struck me when I saw her chart was that we're one of the few counties have studies 10 years old. That's why the jump looks so big.
Sure.
The other counties, Hillsborough was like 5 years. So she has a chart with that.
It's the transportation impact fee comparison chart, especially, that's one of the biggest fees, just to give you a sense. So, yeah, Sarasota updated in '22. Hillsborough, like I said, they are studying schools now and they are starting transportation. Pinellas, we are working with Pinellas. They haven't updated long time, so theirs is but anyway, that's in the process too. I am not so sure about Charlotte. And Pasco County updated. Polk County recently finished it, and they use extraordinary circumstances to increase. And then Pasco was 21. Lee County is planning to start updating. They're updating their fire impact fee, but after that, I think they want to start transportation. Collier's studies are ongoing. Osceola recently had a study completed. It came at about $25,000 per single-family home for transportation. I don't know where they are with the adoption percent of that. And Volusia updated recently.
Do you find that this is really addressing the root problem of what our county is currently facing, or that this tends to be a Band-Aid on a bigger issue?
In terms of transportation, impact fees are limited, even at their highest, because transportation is so expensive. And, I mean, the cost that we saw even between 23 study and now, we had several meetings with the county staff to really understand. And, again, we used a very conservative approach. So for transportation, what really helps is sales tax. Honestly, I mean, that generates a lot more than impact fees. Impact fees help. I mean, they are not nothing, but they are not going to solve all the problems. They will only take care of a portion of the problem.
Mr. Essinger?
Yes, just for my own clarification. The last time we increased impact fees, if I'm correct, or correct me, is 2022? Is that correct?
23.
2023. So your projections here are going for an average of a 2,000 square foot house, which is currently 14,000 and some change, to go to 32,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, I mean, that's a huge increase. That's, that's times 2.5. has any consideration been given to doing this in increments, or are we so far behind that we need to do this with one big lump sum? Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. And the board directed us to bring it back at 100% for their review. So that's why we went with 100%. They did not ask us to provide recommendations on percentages of it. But I also want to point out that, again, those numbers, the $14,000 is the 2015 number that we couldn't increase beyond 50% of the $14,000 that's in the chart for that home. Anyway, the $14,000 that's for the three-bedroom home is a 50% increase over what it was previously
In 2015?
in 2015,
Okay,
right?
right.
So that was as much as we could do. So in that, with that 50% approved percentage, we could only roll it out as 12.5% for every year for 4 years. So what you're seeing is the 2015 rate plus 12.5%. You're not, so that rate wasn't eligible to be analyzed for 100% of current construction value, which was the task that we were given as staff and consultant. We weren't asked to look at a lot of the questions that you're raising. It's not to say that they're not wonderful questions and we're doing our best to answer, but we're not also being purposefully vague because we just are following the direction that we were given through the motion was to bring it back at 100%.
Oh, I understand
So
that.
putting all these questions on the record is perfect so that they hear them and then maybe they'll ask them in our next week's meeting.
Okay. One other interesting thought, is this is a huge increase. And if you look at some of these other sources of revenue, one of the things that jumped out when I was taking a look at it, in the presentation, which is very good, by the way, the penny gas tax, has anything been considered to increase that? Or is that such a source of revenue that at the end of the day, it really doesn't make a difference? Is that?
Yeah, unfortunately, the state does not allow local pennies to be indexed. State pennies are indexed. So it hasn't, as far as I know, we haven't, any attempts weren't successful in the past to trying to index our pennies. Yeah, so.
Okay,
Even
so
though the
in
county
other words,
has all
you've
the-
tried to do that, but it didn't fly.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
I have a question for Ms. Layton, please. It's an easy one.
Okay,
I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. On the staff report,
yes,
on page 4,
okay, I don't have it in front of me.
do you want mine?
Yes, I'll borrow yours.
I have it highlighted, so.
This doesn't work anymore.
I don't know if it's a scrivener's error, or am I missing something? That sentence that I highlighted there.
Oh. Yes, that appears to be a scrivener's error. It reads an update of the definitions for consistency with the impact fee update study, as well as the impact fee supplement. So it looks like we just didn't take out the and the.
Okay. I didn't know if there was something else there that I was missing.
No, thank you for catching that.
Any additional questions? Let's open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, please step forward. On this, do we have telephone too? For anybody on?
There are no callers, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. At this time, let's close public comment. Any additional comments? And could we also have what we're approving? Our computers aren't working anymore. Yes,
Okay,
a motion, I guess.
well, yeah, there are two alternative motions. It's treated like an LDC amendment, so they format the similar, the motion for adoption, I'll just read it. It's based upon staff report evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, find the request to be consistent with the Manatee County Council Plan in accordance with Section 341 of the LDC. I move to recommend adoption of ordinance 2515, amending the Manatee County Land Development Code, and then the denial motions, the converse of that.
Any additional discussion, or may I have a motion one way or the other?
I just, as a comment, I understand what Commissioner Gay is saying. I agree with a lot of what she's saying. I'm frustrated just because we're literally ripping a Band-Aid off very quickly. And I know we like to make builders and developers the bad guy. They're the ones that kept the county going during COVID. Without the construction community, the county would die. Let's just basically say that. But on the other flip side, we wouldn't be in this position if it had been 100% of the impact fee way back when. So as much as I hate that huge jump, I'm hoping the commissioners, if they look back on this, will at least help to soften it a bit and do in stages to help the builders, to help that community out. But I'm for the 100% increase.
I'd like to take a second and add to Commissioner's comments. My concern too is this huge leap, and you're passing this on to the end user that is coming into this community. So, and I like the idea of doing it in increments, but if you look down the road, and it's something that we need to do now, but if we do the whole thing now, and that slows growth, and that slows the consumer wanting to come to Manatee County, then it all becomes a moot point. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of side comments as well here on this. I think that the folks that would be moving here that will be impacted by the impact fees expect what we have here already, right? I think they expect to enjoy what we have here. I think they expect to enjoy the parks. I expect they expect the level of safety, service, and everything else. And while I agree that there should be a phased approach, this is one of those where we see the iceberg. We're on the Titanic, we see the iceberg. We've got a chance here. I will be voting for this as well.
I'll be voting for it as well. I think it's just needed. Too bad we haven't kept up, but I think with the housing market kind of slowing down anyway, that does kind of double the impact in a way. But I think I agree that if it could be done in increments, that would be best, just to not have the full whammy all at once. But I'll be voting for it as well.
I understand, I know where the Board of County Commissioners stand on this issue, but to echo those comments of if the housing market is truly slowing down, like kind of everyone is stating, I think that brings us back to the question of what will that cumulative impact be of these fees on those other private businesses, right? And so I truly hope and urge the board to look at this more cohesively as to how this will impact job creators, how this will impact our economic competitiveness, and look at that moving forward before they make a final decision on how and when these will be implemented.
Thank you. Could I get a motion?
I'll move.
First by Mr. Ziegler. Do I have a second? Okay. We have a second by Ms. Kaba. May we have a raised hands on approval of this motion? Motion passes 6-0. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break, so be back at 10 o'clock. Thank you. I call the commission back in order. The next one is a quasi judicial, so let's go ahead and, anybody planning on speaking, please get sworn in. Yes, ma'am.
Rachel's not back yet.
Oh. Waiting for Rachel.
Would you like me to wait for Rachel?
Yeah,
Here
she's
she
coming in.
comes.
Okay. So if anyone plans to speak today, please rise now to get sworn in. Okay, do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and representations you will present to the board are truthful and accurate? Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
All the other items, you have to be sworn in to speak, so if you plan on speaking, you need to stand up and get sworn in. Can we get item number 2 sworn, or read in?
Item number 2, Z 2418, Alibaba Adventures LLC rezone, and it is quasi judicial. We have CJ Mills here as our planner. It's a rezone of approximately 2.04 acres from agricultural suburban, A1, to light manufacturing, LM, zoning district, and generally located approximately half a mile east of US 301 and 0.17 miles north of 63rd Avenue East, which is also known as Saunders Road, at 6109 33rd Street East, Bradenton.
Can we have a brief presentation?
Oh,
on this?
Before we get to the presentation, sorry, Chairman, did you ask if there were any ex parte communications regarding this matter?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Planning Commissioners. For the record, my name is Bob Schmidt with Land Planning Associates, and I have been sworn. I have with me today my client, Janine Kloiber, and if you have any questions about either with the property and what might be, or anything related to planning and development, we are here to answer those questions. This is a parcel of land at 6109 33rd Street East in Manatee County. I will put up these are maps from your staff report. This is the future land use map showing the property outlined in red, and it is surrounded by IL, industrial light land use category. And then on the zoning side, you can see that there is adjacent LM zoning and a lot of LM zoning across the street. And if you're familiar with the area, between 69th or Whitfield and all the way up to 53rd, there's a lot of industrial businesses in this location. This property was purchased by our clients recently and needed to have a little cleanup done, and they're in the process of doing that. But it's a long-term investment for them, and we don't want any restrictions on the zoning. Light manufacturing prohibits you from doing anything that creates adverse impacts like noise, odor, glare, probably prime for warehouses and things like that. But this is their future, and certainly the zoning is consistent with the future land use category. And again, we're not asking for any restrictions on use. I did read the staff report that CJ prepared, and I do concur with his findings. And the request is certainly consistent with the comp plan and the land development code, and we ask for your recommendation of approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Well, I got one.
Yes, sir.
As a point of clarification, what is Alibaba Adventures?
That's the name chosen by my client. I guess she can answer that if you'd like. Okay.
I'm just curious.
Do I need to come forward, or can
Yes, ma'am. You have
Yes,
to come
ma'am.
forward.
I'm Janine Kleiber, and I have been sworn in. Allie and Bubba were our doggies. So we enshrined them forever in the ownership of our property, Alibaba Adventures, LLC.
So it has to do with animals?
It does, our doggies, yeah.
Okay.
They're long since gone, but
Yeah.
that's why we named it.
What-
Is that what you
Oh, I'm
asked
sorry.
me?
I just,
Oh.
it's a very nice name. I just want to know what the use is going to be.
Oh, just warehouse.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But thank you for letting me tell them about my doggies.
Yes, ma'am. We all love our doggies.
Let's open up to public comment. Anybody from the public that would like to speak on this, for or against? At this time, let's close public comment. Any final rebuttal or anything? May I get a discussion or motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
So moved.
Before you do the motion, you have all the information and evidence that you need. No need to have a presentation from staff, Chairman?
No, sir. It's
Okay, very
presentation
good.
upon
Thank you very
request.
much.
We have a first by Ms. Keba, a second by Mr. Utzinger. Let's raise hands and say for or against. Motion passes 6-0. May we have item number 3 read in the record?
PDR 2410P, Palm Links Estate, and it's quasi-judicial. We have CJ Mills here again for staff. It's approving a preliminary site plan for 4 single-family detached residential dwelling units on approximately 4.28 acres, zone plan development residential, generally located approximately 1,350 feet east of Whitfield Avenue and almost a mile north of University Parkway on the east side of Links Court and commonly known as 7585 Links Court, Sarasota.
Thank you. May we have the applicant's presentation? Oh, has there been any ex parte communication on this? None shown.
Rick Schoppacher with Schoppacher Engineering. I am also the agent, and I have been sworn. The course is got some much needed renovations, and one of the things they were able to do was to swap some land with the HOA, and so that's going to generate some money to help to pay for the improvements that they've got. And I've read the staff report. It's going to be 4 lots, 4 very nice size lots, and right on the course. And like I said, the staff report that CJ put together was very comprehensive, and we concur with everything, and we ask for your approval.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions for the applicant? May we have staff's presentation?
All right, good morning. CJ Mills with staff, and I've been sworn. So this is Palm Links Estates. The site location is at the Palm Links Golf Course. It's approximately 4.28 acres. There's an error on there. The existing zoning is already PDR, and it's been that since the 1990 LDC. They are proposing the 4 single-family detached units. Proposed density is 0.93 dwelling units per gross acre. They're taking access from Links Court, and your standard lot information is your 25, 10, and 15 setbacks for the front, side, and the rear, and then your 0.48 acre lots with a maximum single story for the height. This area has been Res 9 since the adoption of the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan, and as I said, it's been PDR since 1990. The future land use category for Res 9 is for this kind of medium, low-density residential uses with complementary support uses. Again, this is just kind of the intent for the planned development residential zoning district, which it has been, so there's no rezone involved with this. There's a couple overlays, the special treatment and the Evers watershed protection. Really, mainly you're looking at best possible technology practices, kind of prohibiting some of those uses. The biggest thing for this one is going to be your open space, your increased open space to 35% for your residential uses. This is the transportation link capacity analysis. For Whitfield, the adopted level of service is D, and with the future of the 4 residential units, it would stay at that. These are some of the positive aspects of it is the project's being proposed within a well-defined community that's got all the utilities and infrastructure there. The project proposes lots that exceed the minimum standards of the PDR, and also the density is well below that 9 dwelling units per acre that's permitted in Res 9. It does not have any specific approvals associated with it to deviate from the land development code, and then also it's a low traffic generator. Some of the negative aspects is that sidewalks and bicycle lanes don't exist on the side that's immediately adjacent to where the project's being proposed. And also, the project will create more and longer auto-dependent trips, which will create congestion and pollution. Again, this is only for single-family residential uses, or dwellings, so I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact. Also, one of the mitigating measures would be that the sidewalk do exist on the opposite side of Links Court. And in the opinion of staff, the request could be found consistent with the comprehensive plan and all the applicable review procedures of the LDC, and I'll be here if you have any questions.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
On the plans, it shows that you're having to move a drainage ditch, is that correct?
Yes, there's a drainage ditch on what would be the rear of the proposed lot, so
And
running
it's
north
being
and south.
moved to the east, is that?
Yes, is being moved, shifted to the east to have for the creation of the lots.
Is it an improved drainage ditch from what's there now, the same?
So with the actual drainage ditch itself, I think it is going to just be realigned.
Okay.
I don't 100% know if there will be improvements on the ditch. That might be more something that Rick can answer. But I do know that it is being realigned to the east.
So same size for same size?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, the lot sizes, are they the same as the ones that are already in the development there?
They are very similar to the lots, if not a little bit bigger. You got your 0.48 acres. I think there are in that specific subdivision, I believe there's 49 existing lots over approximately 35 acres.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Thank you, sir.
Of course.
At this time, let's open up to public comment. Anyone wishing to step forward, for or against? Let's close public comment. Any additional from staff? I guess applicant? Closing comments, and please discuss the ditch.
Yeah, the ditch is going to be greater than what was there. The ditch just starts right there, so it's not much of a ditch. It's dry 85% of the time. And one thing about the ditch, it is getting very, very close to that one house on the north. They've had to put sandbags up right there, and so we don't want that to happen. So, and it's also going to create a special feature for the golfers when they revamp that hole. It's kind of give a little incentive to try to hit it straight. And yes, the 4 lots are going to be part of the Links HOA, and all the paperwork has been done, so all that's already done.
Thank you, sir. Any additional discussions, or may I entertain a motion? We have a motion by Ms. Prosser, a second by Mr. Esslinger. Please cast your votes by hand. Motion passes 6-0. Could we have the next item read in the records?
Item number 4, ZL 2423, 2405 Lena Road rezone. Blooming Landscape and Lawn Maintenance, Inc. is the owner. It's quasi-judicial. We have Alicia Henry here for staff. It's a rezone of approximately 2.13 acres, generally located 0.75 miles south of State Road 64 along the east side of Lena Road, and commonly known as 2405 Lena Road, Bradenton. And it's from A1 to light manufacturing limited zoning, and it's approving a schedule of permitted and prohibited uses as voluntary proffered by the applicant.
Thank you. Has there been any ex parte communications in reference to this? Thank you. Could we have the applicant's presentation?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Marshall Robinson, and I have been sworn. Today, I'm joined with our applicant and property owner of Blooming's Landscape and Lawn Maintenance, which is Rob Yarish. Also joined with Michael Yates of Pond Traffic and Mr. Caleb Grimes of Grimes Galvano. Mr. Chair, today we're here to talk about a piece of property located at 2405 Lena Road. It's approximately 2.13 acres in size. There's a closer look at the property on Lena Road. Just on the left side, which would be the north, is a Florida Power and Light owned piece of property. To the south is the Manatee County Sheriff's Mounted Posse Social Club. And off to the east, you see there's the landfill for the county. Another close-up look at the property. And Mr. Chair, today we're here to request a rezone. The property is currently zoned A1 or suburban agriculture, and we'd like to request a rezone to the LM or light manufacturing limited zoning district. And as was read into the record, we have offered a limited schedule of permitted and prohibited uses. We had a pre-application meeting back in October of last year. We formally submitted a month later in November. We held our neighborhood workshop in March of this year, which we held virtually, and we sent all of our mailers out, and we actually didn't have anybody attend that meeting. Staff review was completed in March, and we are here today pursuing the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. We are located in the MU, or the Mixed Use Future Land Use category. You can see our property there backs up to the landfill, which is a public, semi-public future land use category. And then everywhere else to the north, south, and west, all the way over to the interstate and up to State Road 64 is in the MU future land use category. Closer look at our zoning pattern that we have out here. Off down to the south, we have an industrial plan development for the Lena Road Business Park. Then there again, the two A1 zoning properties to our north and south with Florida Power and Light and the Manatee County Sheriff's property there. Here are all the lot standards that we have to meet for the LM district. We're fully confident in meeting all of these development standards with our site planning. As you know, we're only here to address our zoning today. We don't have a site plan for the project. And so we're really just here to talk about what we can and cannot do on the property in terms of our zoning. I do want to mention that the LM zoning district that we're asking for does not allow for any off-site adverse impacts. Those are only reserved for heavy industrial uses. So the light manufacturing can't have any adverse impacts, and it also is an implementing zoning district of the MU future land use category. So we feel like this is a really good location. Here's some of the surrounding developments and properties that were noted in your staff report as nearby development. And just wanted to map those to give an idea or some context to what surrounds the property. Before I wrap it up, I'd like to bring the applicant and the owner of the company up. It's Rob Yarish. He founded the company over 20 years ago. He's the president and CEO. He's got facilities in Sarasota, Venice, and Bradenton. And I'd like to have Rob come up and introduce himself to you and tell him a little bit about his plans for the future of this piece of property.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present the potential rezoning of this property to allow us to put a building and run our crews from this location. It's very beneficial to us with the proximity to I-75 and the access to Lakewood Ranch. As you discussed earlier with the traffic concerns, it's challenging to businesses of mine, service businesses. You know, we have 6, 7 guys in a truck, ladies in a truck. We can't afford, you know, to spend 2 or 3 hours a day in the vehicle. That's not usually passed on to our clients, and this property eliminates a lot of that for us, and it's would help our company a lot. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Did you state your name and that you were sworn?
Yes, Robert Garish, I've been sworn.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. May we have the staff's report, please?
Alicia Henry here for staff, and I have not been sworn. I walked in on the entail of swearing in. My apologies.
It's okay.
If you wish to speak on this remaining item, please stand and be sworn in.
Oh, all right. Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and representations you will present to the Planning Commission are truthful and accurate? Yes, thank you.
Okay, good morning. So I'm here to present for 2405 Lena Road rezone. Marshall did a very good job on presenting for this project, so I'm going to go ahead and give a very brief presentation. So the location, as he stated, it is 0.75 miles south of State Road 64 along the east side of Lena Road, and commonly known as 2405 Lena Road within Bradenton. So the site itself, the subject site will only have one access off of Lena Road. It's an urban collector. The subject site will meet the minimum width and lot size for the proposed light manufacturing zoning district. Lines for potable water, sewer, and reclaimed water are adjacent to the subject site on Lena Road. So I'm just going to go ahead and go right to the positive, negative, and mitigating measures. Oh, one thing I do want to go back to is the transportation link capacity analysis. So we have here the below chart, which shows the adopted level of service. And as you can see there, the adopted level of service currently is D. So for the positive aspects, the proffered uses within the requested light manufactured limited zoning district will follow the trends of light manufacturing uses southwest of the subject site. Proposed zoning district would be compatible with existing industrial uses on Lena Road. We can also find more light manufacturing to the southwest of this site. The limited rezone allows for a narrower set of uses that will protect the Manatee County Sheriff mounted posse located to the south. The proposed rezone is a low trip generator. Nearest impacted thoroughfare has sufficient capacity. The light manufacturing zoning district can cause, and this is for the negative aspect, the light manufacturing zoning district can cause potential adverse impacts such as vibration, noise, disturbance, dust, and glare to the Manatee County Sheriff mounted posse adjacent to the south. Applicant has proffered a schedule of permitted and prohibited uses as a mitigating measure that will restrict impacts to the abutting Manatee County Sheriff mounted posse that is to the south of the subject site. The subject site shall comply with all screening, buffering, with setbacks and other mitigating measures in accordance with the Land Development Code. Staff does conclude this proposed rezone and preliminary site plan to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and in compliance with the applicable provisions of the Land Development Code. Any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Let's open this up to public comment. Anyone wishing forward to come up? Been a slow crowd today. At this time, let's close public comment. Staff closing, applicants closing.
Mr. Chair, Marshall Robinson, for the record, I just do want to point out that the negative aspect that was mentioned about noise, light, and odor and certain types of off-site adverse impacts, those are reserved for heavy industrial uses. We're not proposing a heavy industrial use, nor can we create off-site impacts to adjacent property owners. That would be not consistent with the zoning or the comp plan. So I just want to emphasize that the LM zoning we're asking for today does not permit any offsite adverse impacts, like what was suggested for negative aspects.
Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you.
May I have a discussion or a motion, please?
I'll move.
First by Mr. Ziegler, second by Ms. Prosser, and may I have a vote, please? Motion passes 6-0. Thank y'all. Now we have stormwater.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow plan commissioners. Actually, this time I don't have to say I've been sworn, but for the record, Thomas Gerstenberger, Public Works Department. Here today to give a overview report of staff's intentions to amend language within the Public Works Stormwater Management Design Manual. This particular language at this point is obviously in draft. We've had discussions already through the Development Services Plan Task Force meetings over the past couple of months. So I'll actually go through the schedule as far as what meetings we've had so far and plan to have in the future, and also begin with the caveat that the language that we're discussing today is subject to change, and also input both internally through the county departments, whether it be Development Services Department, our own Public Works Department, Utilities Department, or any other department that might provide comments, and also externally from the consulting engineers and the development community with respect to the ramifications of this amendment language. So at this time, I will begin with a presentation with respect to this draft amendment language proposal. First off, to go through an overview of the need for this amendment language. As we all know, it boils down to what happened last year, and it has happened in previous years with respect to flooding. These couple slides that I'm providing now give an overview of the recorded data, whether it be the rainfall data or stage data that was recorded as a result of Hurricane Debbie. Let me go back for just one moment, and at the bottom of this particular slide is an example with reference to present, whether it's county or Southwest Florida Water Management District regulatory standards with respect to the attenuation of runoff or the storage of runoff and the associated release rates, discharge rates, or with respect to flood mitigation, or otherwise known as floodplain balancing of the floodplain impacts versus the creation of compensatory storage. This particular slide here with respect to the stages, I did include notation with respect to the 100-year storm event, and if those particular stages exceeded either the base flood elevation respective to those locations, or the 100-year stages that have been identified from available watershed management plans. Next couple of slides identify the areas that were most heavily impacted from flooding associated from Debbie in 2024, whether it be in Pierce Drain associated with Center Lake subdivision, Bowleys Creek, obviously narrowing in on Shady Brook condominium, but certainly many other areas within Bowleys Creek and these other watersheds that experienced flooding caused by Hurricane Debbie. And also of note is that when we're speaking of a Center Lake, a Shady Brook most recently now with Summerfield, communities up in Parrish or along the coast, that those properties are not only identified from flood claims that were reported from 2024, but are also repetitive lost properties that have experienced flooding over several years. Next examples are of the flooding that was reported and observed on Gamble Creek, whether it be in these pictures with respect to Jim Davis Road, 675 Golf Course Road. These are in particular with respect to Golf Course Road at the bridge or in proximity to the bridge at Golf Course Road at Gamble Creek. Other locations that experienced flooding with respect to Gates Creek and Mill Creek associated with whether it's the thoroughfare network or the local street network with respect to Upper Manatee River Road, Rye Road, Waterline Road, and some of the local streets within this general area. The couple of pictures to the right are of Mill Run, which is one of the entranceways into Mill Creek subdivision. With respect to the regulatory standards that are in place today, just again to reiterate, as far as for the attenuation, otherwise known as the storage of runoff, and the associated discharge rates. Today, whether it's through Manatee County or Southwest Florida Water Management District, the attenuation requirements are regulated to the 25-year storm event, or otherwise known as the 4% probability of occurrence. So for a 25-year storm referenced from Manatee County standards or from the supporting the guides available from the Water Management District or district design criteria, that a 25-year storm, a 25-year, 24-hour duration storm event equates to 8 inches of rainfall accumulation within that 24-hour period. In terms of for floodplain requirements, you'll commonly hear the terminology of a 100-year storm. And for regulatory purposes, the 100-year, 24-hour duration storm event, or the 1% annual probability of occurrence, equates to 10 inches of rainfall accumulation within that time period. And as has been experienced, whether it be from last year or from previous years, 2017 being another prime example with the no-name storm that had occurred in August of that particular year, is that the rainfall events that were experienced in this county and elsewhere, obviously experiencing statewide or in the southeast region of the United States, what is being recorded or what is being reported as far as that rainfall data, that these particular events are of higher magnitudes and intensity. So as far as the rainfall accumulation occurring within a short period of time, as far as the other extreme, that not only are we having these bouts of rainfall accumulation that occur over brief periods of time, but also as far as the duration. So as I just mentioned, as far as regulatory design approach is for a 24-hour period. Well, obviously, we have storm events that extend well beyond a 24-hour period, and many examples that can occur over multiple days, and also that the rainfall accumulation totals exceed those regulatory standards. And finally, and pretty much I had already touched about as far as whether it's the duration period being either the long duration period, the intensity occurring over a short duration, or the rainfall accumulation itself exceeding current county and state design regulatory standards. Next example is of what those particular guides, what those particular references that are utilized, whether it's for land development or even on capital improvement projects, as far as examples of those reference guides dating back over many centuries, not many centuries, many decades, as far as the source of rainfall accumulation data, or as far as design criteria dating back over a number of decades. This particular example identifies the actual charts that are utilized to identify those particular rainfall accumulation totals that are then utilized within drainage calculations that are submitted through permitting through the county or through the Water Management District. With respect to FEMA flood insurance rate maps, this particular slide identifies a very vivid example with respect to Mill Creek watershed, and in particular with respect to a location near the intersection of Rye Road and Waterline Road, where to pull up available flood delineation mapping from a flood insurance rate map today, from the 2014 effective firm, as far as the source of floodplain information today, in that upper portion of the slide on the left. Whereas what is available as far as best available information from a watershed management plan that has been recently been completed by the county and the Southwest Florida Water Management District, as you can tell illustrated here in the bottom left, that significantly more coverage of floodplain has been identified based upon a drainage model that was performed with this particular watershed management plan. The county is in the process of updating flood insurance rate maps through the letter of map revision process for Mill Creek, Pierce Drain, and Bowleys Creek. So as examples of what an amended flood map may look like here in the future. With respect to watershed management plans, the county has 8 watershed management plans underway through cooperative funding initiatives with Southwest Florida Water Management District, which cover a number of drainage basins within this county. So as I noted before, Mill Creek, Pierce Drain, Bowleys Creek are of those watersheds that have been recently completed and have been adopted by the Southwest Florida Water Management District Governing Board. Otherwise, there are 20 drainage basins that are contained within these 8 watershed management plans that are underway, or that are underway as updates to existing watershed management plans that were adopted back in the 2010 to 2013 timeframe. In addition, the county has just recently received approval for cooperative funding through the Water Management District to proceed with an additional watershed management plan of the upper portion of the Manatee River and inclusive of the Lake Manatee Reservoir. This map illustrates essentially what I was just speaking of those particular areas that are contained within either completed watershed management plans, those that are underway, or those that are proposed in the future. With respect to the drainage modeling that is created from these watershed management plans, and at this point, I'll speak of terminology that has been referenced here as of late. The drainage modeling for those particular watershed management plans includes and utilizes what is known as NOAA Atlas 14 rainfall accumulation data. So in lieu of utilizing decades-old rainfall accumulation data, which is referenced in the regulatory guidance from either Water Management District or through the county is to utilize updated rainfall accumulation data that is specific to any general area within the county or the state or essentially the entire country to pull up rainfall accumulation data that has been recorded and that has since been provided by the National Weather Service. To the right on this slide, you'll see references to the NOAA 14 data that was utilized and incorporated in the drainage modeling for both Pierce Drain and for Bowleys Creek watershed management plans. As far as the process now to proceed with this draft amended language to the Stormwater Management Design Manual, staff has held a couple of presentations and meetings with the Development Services Task Force Group. The first initial meeting was held back in February. A second meeting was held in April, and here we are today on May 15th, and bringing this forward to the Plan Commission. In the future, there will be subsequent meetings with both this Plan Commission and the Development Services Task Force to obtain additional input. Subsequently, the draft amended language will be provided to the County Attorney's Office for review, and subsequent to that review would be for the draft language to be scheduled for adoption through the Board of County Commissioners. And as included and noted on this slide, the future schedule is subject to change and additional input both internally, externally, and with the County Attorney's Office. Based upon input that has been already received on this amended language, this particular slide provides an example schedule following adoption as to when the particular language would become effective. So as these slides identify and to break out those particular projects, and I would note that it's not only pertaining to the development review, so development review process, but also the county's capital improvement plan process. So as far as any sort of infrastructure improvements, whether it be highway, utility, or stormwater improvements, this particular language would also apply through our capital improvement design process. So as far as back to the development review applications, so for individual final site plans or construction plans, the process would become effective technically within a 30-day period, whereas for master plan or master stormwater systems, there would be a greater time period for which the draft language would become effective to realize any particular applications that have already been submitted or that have already been approved that contain a master stormwater system. So prime examples of that would be for residential, commercial, or industrial projects where a master stormwater facility is designed and constructed, yet the rest of the development is either within phases or within out parcels or broken up into latter stages of development. So this recognizes that a master drainage plan may already be in process or may be provided with a longer effective date to provide for those particular designs, since they are a longer process through permitting and review for a master stormwater plan to become for approval. And at this point, what I would like to do is bring up on the overhead the draft language as it has been provided in the agenda system and as it is also available through a couple of other means online. I do have a page that I will provide here at the end, which identifies links as far as where the general public or any consulting engineer or development community can refer to this draft amended language and provide additional input. So for now, the particular draft language is essentially divided up into 4 particular sections within the Stormwater Management Design Manual. This particular first section is with respect to the utilization of watershed management plans and incorporation of NOAA 14 rainfall accumulation data. As we all are pretty much aware, especially over the past couple of years and through the land use hearing process, that NOAA 14 has been referenced and identified in stormwater conditions within staff reports and is also, as I mentioned before, already being utilized within particular watershed management plans within the county. So through this amended language, this would codify that language into the Stormwater Management Design Manual in lieu of it being included essentially case by case or project by project through a staff report going through a land use hearing. The next section accounts for utilization of watershed management plans by development applications and also through our capital improvement design process. So to utilize those particular watershed management plans and the associated best available data that is provided by the floodplain delineation and the drainage modeling associated with those particular watersheds, to incorporate the development or capital improvement plans into that drainage modeling. And for that particular drainage modeling, once it has been approved or once it has gone through a 100% design through the capital improvement design process, that particular drainage modeling be submitted back to the county so that updates can be provided to those watershed management plans and include any type of modification, any type of development and capital improvements into those particular drainage modeling instead of going through an update process, which typically is done every 5 to 10 years. So essentially, this process is very similar to what is done today in Sarasota County for development or for capital improvements to be incorporated into the drainage modeling, and then for that updated drainage modeling to be utilized for subsequent applications or capital improvement projects. In addition, this particular language would also account for demonstrating that no adverse impacts are created to surrounding properties with respect to the utilization of this drainage model. The next section is with respect to floodplain compensation areas. With respect to those developments or capital improvement projects where impact into identified 100-year floodplains are referenced or designed into a particular final site plan, construction plan, or capital improvement project. Today, there is utilization of either cup for cup floodplain compensation, with respect to the creation of equivalent or greater compensatory storage within a 100-year floodplain to address impacts associated with fill that is created by development. Otherwise, this particular language would require that that particular practice, cup for cup, floodplain compensation, or a volumetric analysis through drainage modeling be utilized. In addition, this language includes additional design criteria or requirements with respect to the construction of floodplain compensation areas to ensure that those connections, or that if those particular areas are directly connected into a drainage system, that the drainage modeling is utilized to address those particular connections with respect to armoring, stabilization, or the discharges and associated velocities that may be encountered entering and exiting those particular floodplain compensation areas. And the reason that this particular language is being included in this as amended language is to take into account erosion and damage that has been experienced over the past couple of years to whether it's private or county stormwater facilities as a result of most recent storm events. And the final section with respect to this draft amended language is with respect to a flood level of service. A flood level of service, an example of a flood level of service is provided or is already being utilized in surrounding counties, Sarasota County, namely being a very good example of where there are specific design criteria based upon the thoroughfare classification or the local street classification. Presently, there is no stormwater level of service standard with respect to inundation depths, whether it be on the county thoroughfare network or local streets. The present land development code and county stormwater management design manual criteria are specific to free water requirements or clearance requirements only. So this particular language would address a inundation level of service for the thoroughfare network and for local streets, and would also provide design guidelines for capital improvement projects and for whether it's construction of new roadways within this county or the modification or improvement of the existing thoroughfare network in this county. And finally, bring this up. As far as for public input regarding this draft amendment language, I have provided this sheet, which identifies a link both on the manatee.org website to obtain this draft amended language, and also a copy, I won't bring it up on the overhead, but essentially this draft amended language has also been provided as a strike-through underline of the Stormwater Management Design Manual for reference on this particular website, and also through the Stormwater Engineering Hub site. And for any input, for any comments, questions, or suggestions with respect to this draft amended language, I have included my email address at the bottom of this particular page. For those who are welcome, they can certainly contact me. So at this time, I will be welcome to take any questions from the Planning Commission or from the public, and appreciate your time and consideration.
No questions. I just wanted to thank you for such a thorough,
Thank you.
extremely thorough.
Appreciate it.
report. Thank you.
You think it will be in effect, I guess, this year, November-ish, somewhere around there?
As I've noted a couple of times, the schedule is subject to change, and first obvious is to get input from both internally and from the public, but also based upon the county attorney's office review, especially given the state legislation that is underway with respect to emergency management, and also that has been referenced for the comprehensive plan, and also on the wetlands, as far as with respect to the wetlands and also the future development area boundary. So needless to say, we'll probably see you again in the future. There will probably be additional updates. The one thing to note is that, and has been pointed out, that some of this particular language that is contained within the amended language is already being utilized through the land use hearing process. So most prime example being No Atlas 14, as far as utilization of No Atlas 14 that has been proffered by applicants, that is being utilized on development applications already in this county. This particular utilization of No Atlas 14, we understand that Sarasota County is also looking into utilization of No Atlas 14, and also in speaking to Representative Connerly, that there may also be interest at the state level to utilize No Atlas 14, not only for watershed management plans as the county already has underway, but to look at utilizing No Atlas 14 throughout the state.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Is there any public comments or on the telephone?
There looks like there is a call.
Okay. Do I need to do anything? Caller?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Anthony Shulo, Manatee County resident. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear there. I didn't know if there were other callers.
Yes, sir.
Great. So Anthony Shulo, again, Manatee County resident. Good morning. And first of all, I'd like to just take a minute as a resident to thank Mr. Gerstenberger and the rest of the staff there for this presentation, for one, and for consistently providing truth to power. You know, this staff, folks, is telling you there's a problem. There's several folks that are clearly documenting the problem and bringing it to all the levels of the government that are needed of power that are needed to do this. So all of these recommendations simply need to be done as an evolution of our policy, accompanying the years of approved projects that have essentially changed the use of this land. So Tom's telling you the land use has changed here. When you change the use of land, so goes the policy that we need to have in place. On record, all of us, yourselves as the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners over years, are on record changing this use. They're complementary and necessary. Change the use of land, you got to codify the requirements in the policy. Mr. Gerstenberger mentioned these applicants for land use are proffering the acceptance of NOAA Atlas. You need to codify this, because this shouldn't be proffered. We should be telling them they need to do it. We don't need to grovel to an applicant to make better use of the land or help us preserve the wetland. That should be necessary, and this stormwater is our problem to deal with. We should codify it. So again, continue to pursue that. As far as proactivity, this policy act is reactive based on last year's devastation and many years of it. Proactive efforts are what is needed. This board, since I have an audience today, slow down your max density project approvals. Landowners can sell them. Buyers do not need to have approvals at the same time. Land speculation, that's a business. You're speculating. Approving max density projects is basically taking business risks away from those applicants, placing it on our county. Stormwater risk, transportation, etc. Now, firsthand, I've seen some of the benefits at Gamble Creek that staff has done, but it will not come close to fixing the greater stormwater problem. I'm upstream of Mill Creek. I'm upstream of all of these properties. Fix my problem and it's going to dump it on them. That's really what's happening. And if you don't take a stand now and approve these things, you're just chasing your tails. But again, I applaud Mr. Gerstenberger, the rest of the stormwater staff. Those folks are trying to catch up. You guys need to help them. Thank you.
In closing, again, would like to thank the Planning Commission for the input today. The next scheduled discussion on this draft amendment language will come at the Development Services Task Force meeting on May 29th. And then I will see you again probably here in the upcoming months to discuss further. But again, thank you, most appreciated.
Chairman, I'm still seeing the number. I think it might be Mr. Shulo's, but if we can do just one last check to see if there's any public comment on the phone.
Yes, sir. Is there any additional public comments on the phone?
No other callers, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any additional comments from the commission? At this time, we're adjourning the Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.